I'm a worker at NASA. Nowadays I found out the alarming truth of the moon investigation. The rumors around the moon landing are wrong. It wasn't shot in a studio. In truth, the genuine truth is much more alarming than you might ever imagine. Turns out, there's a part more insider facts that NASA holds that aren't uncovered to the open, or indeed the workers. That's why when I saw that my boss's computer was cleared out turned on, my interest got the superior of me. Indeed, as a staff at NASA, my boss uncovers nearly nothing to me. I'm fair given the ordinary errands of sorting information. The genuine privileged insights are kept in an offline computer room with thousands of difficult drives, the room where my boss works. I've been in the room a few times, ordinarily to drop off difficult drives. I ordinarily fair hand the drive straight to my boss, but nowadays was diverse. He wasn't in the room, but there was a note on the work area that said he would be back. The note said to take off the drive on his work area, and so I did. In any case, as I looked up, I couldn't offer assistance but take note a swoon gleam on the divider behind it. The computer was on, the screen lighting up the divider. This was unusual. It was continuously closed down by the boss after information dump. The as it were times I'd ever seen it turned on were days when he was in there, still working. This is when I made the botch that demolished my life forever. With a slight spike in adrenaline, I strolled around the work area and sat at the chair, prepared to take back at slightest one puzzle to the hive intellect on the fundamental floor. My heart beat at the thought of my boss returning, but I'd taken note the computer was set up fair like the rest of our PCs. Since of this, I knew fair what organizers to open and what advanced stones to turn on my chase for insider facts. Most records I found were fair boring ancient information, and after a few minutes of looking, I nearly called it stops. But one report caught my eye. It was titled Venture Burial at Ocean. This was what I needed. A classified NASA extend never sometime recently discharged to open. At this minute, insider facts were uncovered to me. Ones I before long wished I had never uncovered. Extend burial at ocean was, incidentally sufficient, a fall flat secure against data spills. It executed the pre-existing framework of NASA's unmanned missions to a range of conceivable people spilling information. I was stunned. NASA was murdering off conceivable whistleblowers and leakers to secure their resources. Being such a tall-profile company, there was no way to arrange of bodies ordinarily without being taken note. So the extent called for the bodies to be buried on the moon, disposing of any potential proof. The individuals who vanished made up exceptionally little parcel of NASA, so the proportion of lost people in connection to their workforce was scarcely disturbed, diverting any potential suspicion. The bodies are stuffed into the empty spaces of the already unmanned tests. Once they reach the lunar surface, they are collected by meanderers and buried in the holes of the particular area of the moon's dim side. In other words, mass graves. I was amazed. This record was not what I expected. I couldn't accept this sort of thing would happen in our nation and at NASA of all places, an organization I was included with. Upon returning to my workstation, I had to say something to somebody. I couldn't fair keep this to myself. I turned to my associate Charge, somebody I knew I seemed believe and would be able to keep a mystery. Charge, I whispered, have you listened to anything around NASA sending bodies to the moon? He gazed at me a minute, an excessively genuine expression painted over his confront. At that point he snickered. Jack, you are a card. Where do you come up with this stuff anyway? You ought to compose a book. Without so much as a sound to alarm his entry, my boss put his hand on my bear. I about bounced out of my skin. Jack, I've been meaning to conversation to you. A huge advancement in the works. Meet me in my office in 10 minutes. With that, he extricated his grasp and traveled back to his room. My eyes broadened and my heart sank. Charge taken note something was off base. What's off base, Jack? You see, as in spite of the fact that you've seen an apparition, advancements are an enormous bargain around here, as it were one each few months or so. Lisa was advanced final year and went on to oversee one of the unmanned test dispatches. Haven't listened from her since. I turned to Charge and met his look. Charge, it's been pleasant working with you. He grinned some time recently turning back to his computer. You as well, Jack. 10 painful minutes came and went. I reluctantly made my way to his room and gradually opened the entryway. The boss motioned for me to come in. Have a situate, Jack, and near the entryway. I unwillingly obliged. The thought of making a run for it crossed my intellect, but I knew the security detail at the front door would halt me. So, what is this almost? I inquired. My breathing presently labored and intermittent. Like I said some time recently, it's an advancement. NASA is enlisting from its partner outfits to administer a few of their unmanned dispatches. You've been selected. I tilted my head in skepticism. But sir, why me? I haven't done anything to warrant such advancement to my information. He smiled. That's where you're off base, Jack. We've been observing you. We know what you did. You can't deny it any longer. With an evil grin, he stood up from his work area and strolled over to me, his arms outstretched in my course. His shadow secured the whole room, or at slightest, it appeared that way in the minute. Without realizing it, I had sponsored myself into the corner, nearly cringing in fear. That's when the entryway opened and my co-laborers overwhelmed the room. Shock. I stood upright shocked. What's going on? Charge reacted. Do not you know what day it is, Jack? The boss pointed at his divider calendar. It was September 18th, which agreeing to them was my contract date. It all made sense presently. It was a stratagem, a down-to-earth joke at my cost. I thought this was oddly amateurish of my boss, who was as a rule greatly covert and undercover. Something was off, but I went along with it. You can presently check if there's a portion to by squeezing share and more.